Every mattress store in America will beat any competitor's price on the same mattress. So go find the same mattress. You can't. Not because the beds are different, because the names are. Here is how a mattress arrives on a showroom floor. A factory builds one bed, one coil unit, one foam stack, one specification. That bed then leaves the plant 10 times under 10 different covers with 10 different model names on the label, bound for 10 different retailers. Same springs, same foam. 10 names, 10 price tags. And as far as any price tag in America is concerned, no two of them are the same product, which means the sign in the window is telling the truth. That store will absolutely beat a competitor's price on the identical model. There is simply no identical model to bring them. The guarantee is real. The condition that triggers it has been removed, and the people doing the removing have a word for it. Shoppers call this the name game. The industry does not. In its own documents filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, these are national exclusive brands. Mattress Firm filed to go public again in January of 2022, and in the risk factors of that document, one phrase does all the work. The company explains that its exclusive and private brand merchandise carries a higher gross margin than, its words, the comparable national brand's merchandise it also sells. Comparable. In the filing, the twin bed exists and it carries a margin. In the showroom, it goes by another name. You would assume a factory came up with this. It didn't, and it doesn't benefit. A manufacturer shipping one bed under 10 names can't build a reputation for any of them, because nobody can recommend a model that exists in only one store. Good Bed, the mattress trade guide that has documented the practice for years, is blunt about where it comes from. The system is enabled by the manufacturer, it says, but it happens at the explicit request or the insistence of the retailer. The party who wants your comparison shopping disabled is the one standing on the sales floor next to you. So, what is that worth? There is a number, and it is on the public record. Mattress Firm was a listed company until 2016, which means several years of its books are filed and permanent. In fiscal 2014, it sold $1,806 million of mattresses out of 2,094 stores. And it broke out what all that merchandise cost. Product costs, 37.8% of net sales. 37.8 cents. That's the goods, every bed, every frame, every pillow, delivered to the store after supplier rebates. The other 62.2 cents of every dollar was margin over the merchandise. That is the number people mean when they say a mattress store makes 60%. It's roughly right, and it is not what the company kept. Watch what happens to it. Rent went first. Store and warehouse occupancy, the showrooms, the leases, the depreciation on all of it, the space to hold a product the size of a door, took 16.1 cents of every dollar. Warehousing and delivery, because somebody has to carry that door up your stairs, took 7.9. Which is why the gross margin the company actually reported was 38.2%, not 60%. Then the expensive part. Sales and marketing, the advertising, and the commissioned salesperson who walks you to the bed took 23.7 cents. Head office took 9.2. What reached the bottom line was 5.4 cents. 62.2 cents of margin. 5.4 cents of operating profit. Mark that down, which answers a question almost nobody thinks to ask. Where does the money from the name game actually go? It goes into the stores and the advertising, and the stores and the advertising are exactly what make the name game necessary. That same filing defines a term for this, share of voice. The proportion of advertising spend of one retailer relative to that of the entire relevant industry. Mattress Firm put its share of voice at about 30%, on a market share of about 20%. That is a company buying a bigger share of the noise than it holds of the sales. And a business built on being remembered cannot afford to be compared. Because if the bed in front of you and the bed 2 miles away are visibly the same object, The only question left is price. And a pure price fight is won by whoever spends the least on showrooms and advertising, which is precisely the company that just spent the most. So the names are not a trick sitting beside the business model. The names are a load-bearing wall. And this is not history. By fiscal 2021, Mattress Firm was running 2,353 stores on $4,392.9 million of revenue at a gross margin of 42.4%, up from 38.2%, operating margin 9%. The model didn't merely survive, it got better at itself, which brings us to the only part of this you can do anything about. Stop comparing names. The name is the one thing a factory can change for free. Compare the things it can't. Coil count. How many springs are in the unit? Coil gauge the thickness of the wire on an inverted scale, where a lower number means a thicker spring. Most support coils land between 13 and 15. Foam density, measured in pounds per cubic foot, which is the best single predictor of whether a foam layer is still doing its job in 8 years. The layer stack in order with thicknesses, and the overall height. That is the fingerprint. A cover can be recolored and a model name can be invented on a Tuesday, but a coil unit of a given gauge and count, under a foam layer of a given density, is the same object in every store in the country, whatever the tag says. 2 warnings. The first is that the specs get renamed too. 2 inches of memory foam at one store becomes 2 inches of ultra-soft viscoelastic foam at another, which is the same 2 inches. The second is that you should not expect help finding the match. When Good Bed sent shoppers in to ask which bed on the floor was the closest thing to a competitor's, not a single salesperson was able or willing to point to one. Which is the system working? And none of this is illegal or hidden or unique to mattresses. Retailer-exclusive model numbers run through appliances, televisions, tools. The trade calls them derivative models. A retailer that negotiates its own build has a genuine argument that it's offering something nobody else has, and Mattress Firm makes exactly that argument in the same filing. Exclusive products, it says, add to its differentiation. It's an ordinary, disclosed strategy, described in public documents by companies who will tell you all about it, in writing if you go looking. It's just worth knowing which piece of writing is which. The sign in the window promises to beat any competitor's price on the same mattress, and it means every word. That's the face value. The ledger says there is no same mattress, and if you want another business that decides what you'll do before you know you're doing it, there's one on this channel about why a buffet wants you to fill up on the cheap stuff first.